Dentists, stockbrokers, and advertising execs.
With your sorry wardrobe, I'm surprised you even owned the suit, let alone a three-piece gray flannel.
I didn't say own, Romano. I rent it.
Sunday at 6:40.
I've really struck it lucky this week because I've got Scotland's two finest singers on Highway with me on Sunday. Moira Anderson and, of course, Kenneth McKellar. Not forgetting Jean Anderson. Tell them, Moira.
Well, that's Sunday, Highway at 6:40.
See you then.
Then at 7:15, the Powells and the Vokes play Family Fortunes for that big money prize. Murder, mystery, suspense at 7:45. Callum is back.
What's the matter, son? Hasn't had to let you kill anybody lately?
Edward Woodward's famous agent Callan has a new target. Sunday at 7:45 on London Weekend Television.
Next tonight, the latest world news from ITN.
TSB, the bank that likes to say yes.
MPG, TSB, BHF, TSB, 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 TSB. From 123 to OAP, from Form 5B to new trainee, all TSB. VIPs.
TSB, the bank that likes to say yes.
Lot of both. Lot of both. Lot of both. Fresh milk's got a lot of both. Nice cold milk.
There are thousands of people all over Britain who, while driving on wet roads, have encountered a great danger. Maybe they didn't see the water lying in a hollow. Perhaps they misjudged a deceptive bend. When the moment of maximum danger came, they were lucky enough to be traveling on a road surface called shell grip. Tires grip better on shell grip. It is estimated that shell grip has already saved thousands of people from injury or death. You can be sure of Shell.
Remember what the sun looks like, and the sea, and the sand? Remember your holiday. You forgot to order one? Well, don't forget again. Ring Phone-A-Brochure for any of the holidays you've seen advertised on this channel. 01 388 1122. Phone-A-Brochure, the easiest way to get away.
On TVAM tomorrow, the story behind the biggest racing scandal in years. This week, top jockey Billy Nunes was banned from riding after taking a £1,000 bribe. Tomorrow, the man who gave him that money, gambler Harry Bardsley, joins us on TVAM, saying he's lots more to tell about racetrack corruption. And in the wake of Mark Thatcher's alleged involvement in the controversial Armagh contract, we ask, how much did Maggie know? That's TVAM tomorrow at 8:30.
And now we go over to the studios of ITN for the latest national and international news with Norman Rees.
The Iron Lady talks of her iron resolve to work for peace. Former Cheltenham boss claims there was American pressure to ban unions. Another 35 die in Lebanon fighting. The £30 million satellite lost in space. And Scotland are 2/3 of the way to the Triple Crown. Good evening. The Prime Minister is back home from a visit to Hungary, and she says it's been a helpful first step towards better relations between East and West. Mrs. Thatcher flew back to Heathrow tonight with a bouquet of flowers from her first official visit to a Warsaw-packed country. Before leaving Budapest, she talked of her iron resolve to work for an easing of tension and a safer world. She said her meetings with Hungarian communist leaders had been constructive and valuable.
There were times this morning when it looked as though Mrs. Thatcher was going flat out for the Hungarian vote, in scenes familiar to those involved in British election campaigns, but which utterly astonished her communist hosts. The Prime Minister went on a sort of combined walkabout and shopping expedition in one of the big covered markets in Budapest. The kitchen at number 10 is not only, it seems, about to be replenished with some staple foodstuff, but with some pretty exotic Hungarian delicacies too. The bustle continued outside as well, with local people clearly pleased to see her. But there were some quieter moments when, for example, Mrs. Thatcher went to a military cemetery outside Budapest. Here, some 200 British and Commonwealth airmen who died in the war which so ravaged this country are buried. And there was a chance, too, to meet some ordinary Hungarians at a housing development which the British firm George Wimpey are helping to set up here. Andre and Anna Sommer and their 3 children only moved in 3 weeks ago, and there suddenly was the Prime Minister dropping in for elevenses. Summing up her visit, Mrs. Thatcher said she hoped it had shown that she did want a reduction of East-West tension.
But while I'm known as the Iron Lady, I also have an iron resolve to work for an easing of tension and for a safer and more prosperous world in which less is devoted to arms and more to well-being.
But as she left, Mrs. Thatcher said that she was under no illusions. The path to better East-West relations, she said, would be a very slow and gradual process. Michael Brunson, ITN, Budapest.
The former director of GCHQ Cheltenham, Sir Brian Tovey, has said there was American pressure to ban unions there, something Mrs. Thatcher and the Foreign Secretary, Sir Geoffrey Howe, have denied. Sir Brian, director of the Intelligence Gathering Centre until he retired in September, is quoted in tomorrow's Sunday Times as saying the pressure was subtle. He says he himself drew up the plan to ban unions in 1981 after the Americans made it clear they were increasingly disturbed at the disruption caused by union activities. We noticed a reluctance to enter into work sharing, says Sir Brian, and we read this as a message. Mrs. Thatcher in Budapest today defended Sir Geoffrey Howe's handling of the GCHQ ban. She said that she had every confidence in him. Sir Geoffrey himself dismissed calls for his resignation.
No, it's the kind of call that is often made by way of amplification of criticism by people who wish to strengthen their case. But I dealt with that in the House yesterday. The question doesn't arise.
Do you think that the Conservative Party can ride out this storm?
The Conservative Party has written out many storms. I have no doubt whatsoever that this one will be dealt with in exactly the same way, because our policies are right in the national interest and are understood to be so.
The Northern Ireland office has dismissed criticism from the Irish government over the Duke of Edinburgh's visit yesterday to Armagh. The Dublin government formally protested at the visit to the Grenadier Guards who are based at a UDR barracks because several UDR men have been charged with the murder of Catholics. But in a curt one-sentence statement tonight, the Northern Ireland office said the visit was an internal matter for the United Kingdom. In Lebanon, the Prime Minister and 3 other ministers, a third of the cabinet, are reported to have offered their resignations from President Jamal's government. It follows a call by the Shiite militia leader McVitie Berry for all the Muslim leaders to quit and for Muslims in the army to disobey orders. Meanwhile, there's been more heavy fighting between Muslim militiamen and the Lebanese army. This report by Alan Pitsey of CBS News.
Various politicians appealed for an end to the fighting, but no one seemed to hear them. There's this battles were along a road known as Gallery Saman, which links East and West Beirut. The Lebanese army is trying to keep Shiite Muslim militiamen from controlling it. The army pounded the area with tank fire, shooting straight down the road into buildings shrouded in smoke and dust. This is where the tank shells were hitting. Minutes after this picture was taken, CBS soundman Hassan Haraki and 2 Shiite militiamen were wounded by shrapnel, probably from the tank at the end of the road. Almost 200 people, mainly civilians, have been killed and wounded since the battles began Thursday. 2 of the victims buried today were teenage civil defense volunteers from a Shiite youth group. Their funeral served to reinforce what is rapidly becoming a fierce sectarianism.
NASA, the American Space Agency, is still trying to find the communication satellite launched from the Shuttle Challenger that's gone missing in space. But NASA say it's not their fault. They say the launch was perfect, but there seems to have been something wrong with the satellite itself.
The launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger yesterday was the most problem-free yet, but the loss of a satellite only 9 hours later has set the mission off to a bad start. The deployment of satellites from the shuttle's cargo bay has become almost a routine operation. The actual launch of the satellite went perfectly. It spun to provide stability and then literally pushed into space with a spring mechanism. The solid rocket booster beneath it should have pushed it a further 22,000 miles higher into space. But even at this stage, the satellite was refusing to talk to its ground controllers back on Earth. And when a signal was sent to ignite the booster 45 minutes later, it's possible it exploded and crippled the satellite. The owners of the satellite switched the launch from the shuttle's European competitor Ariane after pressure from NASA. But even if it had gone up on Ariane, it now looks as though there would have still been problems with the satellite itself.
The Labour MP for St Helens South, Mr Gerry Bermingham, came under more pressure to resign today because of his 2 alleged love affairs. His constituency Labour Party broke all links with him. They say he gave an undertaking to quit next month, though he didn't confirm that.
All along, Mr Birmingham has been reluctant to talk about his deteriorating relations with his constituency Labour Party. Today, after another meeting with them, he didn't say much more, only that he knew exactly what he was doing and that he'd make an announcement in mid-March. Unofficially, CLP members said that would be his resignation, but from today they say he's not their MP.
As from this morning, this constituency Labour Party and the Labour Group and the District Labour Party want no further dealings with Mr Gerry Bermingham.
What form will that take?
That will take many forms. We want no communication whatsoever. We provide no facilities. As far as we're concerned, he no longer exists.
Will that start from this morning's surgery?
That starts from this morning's surgery.
Are you happy that he's continuing with this morning's surgery?
Oh, yeah, because it's only fair to the people who's turned up to see him.
Now, sport, and there was good news and bad news for the Welsh rugby players today. They beat the Irish convincingly in Dublin, but when they got back to the dressing room, they found a thief had stolen £700 from their wallets. But they weren't robbed on the field, nor were the Scots at Murrayfield. Here's Jeremy Thompson.
Scotland are still on course for their first Triple Crown since the war. Having beaten Wales 2 weeks ago, they brushed England aside 18 points to 6 in the 100th Calcutta Cup game at Murrayfield. In Dublin, Wales finally came good, beating Ireland 18-9. From the start, the Scottish forwards tore into England's much-vaunted pack like a Highland hunting party. What ball they didn't win, they simply spoiled for their visitors. Behind them, Laidlaw and Rutherford turned and taunted the old enemy with superb kicking, and Baird was only a fingertip from an opening try. Then, in the 28th minute, David Johnston recalled the skills he'd once learned as a professional footballer with nearby Hearts, dribbling over for a touchdown which Dodds converted. Only then did England produce the sort of verve that brought them victory over the All Blacks 2 months ago. Mostly, though, they looked a shadow of that side. Totally in keeping, Dusty Hare kicked only 1 penalty in 5 attempts. The half-time score looked closer than it was. Scotland put that right within a minute of the restart, as Tomes led an irresistible drive. Swiftly, the ball swung left for Kennedy to stride through a gaping gap in the English defence. Dodds converted while Hare scraped 1 more penalty, but the closing scene summed it all up. Another storming surge from the Scots, leaving lacklustre England floundering in the mud once again. The result, a second penalty for Dodds. The kick and the 100th Calcutta Cup sailed Scotland's way with equal ease. Meanwhile, in Dublin, their next opponents, Ireland, faced a rejuvenated Wales, as Ian Edwards reports.
Following a series of disappointing matches, the Welsh forwards' performance today was a revelation. By winning this early scrum with a tremendous shove off an Irish put-in, they gave notice of a much more disciplined and controlled team effort. Soon afterwards, the Irish suffered a blow to their morale when their hooker and captain, Kieran Fitzgerald, had to leave the field because of an injury to his head. They were already 6 points behind in the second half when the decisive score came for Wales. Norster towered above the line-out to tap to Douglas, and Ackerman ran his way through the Irish defence like a knife through butter. He's unlikely to score a more satisfying try in his life. The surprising thing is that the Irish were so bemused by his weaving and dummying that they hardly lay a hand on him. The conversion by Davies sealed an emphatic victory that goes a long way towards restoring Welsh pride. Ian Edwards, ITN Sport, Lansdowne Road.
A grey day in the soccer world was brightened up by a 16-year-old Ipswich schoolboy called Jason Dozzell. Not only did he become the youngest player in the First Division for 20 years, he scored for Ipswich in their 3-1 win against Coventry, and that's after spending only 1 day a week with the club between lessons. Elsewhere, there was little to relieve the gloom. Liverpool and Manchester United couldn't manage a goal between them, yet they both managed to draw and keep their top 2 places. West Ham moved into third, disposing of Stoke 3-0. Down in the First Division basement, Wolves looked a good bet to hang on to their place at the bottom. Nothing went right for them against Southampton, who took all 3 points with the late goal Steve Moran scored. He's 8th in their last 5 away games. Chelsea extended their Second Division lead to 2 points. Behind them, Sheffield Wednesday and Manchester City could only draw, while Kevin Keegan hit 2 of Newcastle's 4 against Portsmouth. In Scotland, Aberdeen stretched their unbeaten run to 20 games. They beat Celtic 1-0 to make the Premier Division look even more like a one-horse race. England resumed their first innings in the second test against New Zealand in a few hours' time with everything to do to save the match. At the end of the second day, which lasted just 90 minutes because of rain, they crashed to 53 for 7, still 55 runs short of avoiding the follow-on. Only Lamb with 11 and Botham with 18 reached double figures. On the racecourse, Borough Hill Lad looked even more like a Gold Cup winner at Sandown today when he finished lengths ahead of the rest in the Gainsborough Chase. He returned 11-8 with the favourite Silverbuck unplaced.
And that's all from us here this Saturday evening. From everybody at ITN, a very good night to you.
Can Sir Keith Joseph, the Education Minister, succeed in raising standards in Britain's schools? Watch Weekend World live tomorrow at noon on ITV.
And now the weather forecast. It'll be cloudy at first tonight with some drizzle. A spell of heavy rain is likely around midnight, followed by clearing skies. It'll turn colder as the weather clears, and with the temperature falling to around 2 degrees centigrade, 36 degrees Fahrenheit, a few icy patches may form on roads towards the end of the night. Tomorrow morning will be mostly bright and dry, but cloud will increase during the day, and some showery rain is likely during the afternoon and evening. Temperatures will be around 7 degrees centigrade, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a little colder than recently, and that's the weather. Next, Gregory Peck and Laurence Olivier star in our adult movie, The Boys from Brazil.
There's only one cereal you sign for, Kellogg's Rice Krispies with vitamins and iron. Because only Kellogg's Rice Krispies has snap, crackle, and pop. It's a sign of good taste.
McVitie's baked biscuits,
like they ought to be.
With Abby Crunch we have a hunch that it can't be the syrup and it isn't the wheat, so it must be the oats that make them crunch. Nobody bakes them quite like McVitie's do. Nobody bakes them like you. Nobody bakes them.
Nobody looks at personal computing quite like Wang. The Wang professional computer is part of a totally integrated office automation system. Data processing, word processing. With the Wang professional computer, it all ties in. Wang looks at how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together and gives you one solution that fits everyone's needs, bringing everything in your office closer together. Wang helps keep you ahead.
Carlsberg. Special brew, unlike most other lagers, has to spend some considerable time maturing, achieving its somewhat special character. But we think you'll agree. It's well worth all the effort.
Most brands of videotape still use iron in their formulation.